Messi. Messi. Oh my goodness. Balotelli. Aguero. Oh, that is extraordinary. What a head strike. What a head. Back of the net.
Hello, and welcome to the Not a Pundit podcast. I'm Killian Ginnity, and I'm delighted to be joined, as ever, by Conor Glennon and Nathan Byrne. Gentlemen, how are we doing?
Another win for the Toon. I cannot complain. We are marching forward, and we can't lose. I can't complain. What about you, Nate?
I am buzzing. We beat the Divas on Saturday, Sunday. Bet them on penalties. I've never seen a team on the ground more than Arsenal. So, it was extra delightful. Let's say that.
What did you make of the refereeing performance? Was it, as the United Twitter account said, justice that the Y's won in the end?
Honest to God, it was one of the worst refereeing performances I've ever seen. I don't know how he got so many decisions wrong that were blatantly in his eye. The penalty was hilarious. Although Bayindir pulled off a David De Gea-esque performance at the Emirates, shall we say? He came up huge, and then the boys got it over the line. But
does it give you a newfound appreciation for VAR?
Oh, don't do that.
But does it though? This is back to the days of kind of
had this conversation the other day.
The ref.
It was more free flowing. I felt the game was. It was. Players weren't checking themselves as much, in terms of the offside and this and that. There's a few more offside calls. The players were trying to be that little bit more bolder. To be honest, I think I saw more on the outside of maybe the game looks better without VAR than with it. But yeah, that referee performance was
suspect.
And that's what we call sitting on the fence.
I was just bloody glad for once that Newcastle didn't get Arsenal in the third round of the FA Cup. We'd 4 years in a row of getting them and getting trounced.
Did you just watch it though? They wouldn't stop jumping on the ground. I was if I'm an Arsenal fan, I am shouting at my TV. These bunch of divas wouldn't get off the ground. It was hilarious.
In Arsenal's defence, they were playing with a different ball than what they're used to.
Yeah.
It's the third or fourth ball they've had to play with in a matter of weeks. This isn't okay, guys.
Is Arteta on fraud watch at this point? They can't score goals.
Well, now they're even more screwed.
Penalties,
with Jesus having torn his ACL, they're in serious trouble. They are going to have to make some moves in the market, or they are dust for the season. It's not like when City won the league without a striker. They just can't score for love nor money.
Well, if they did make a move, that'd be a change, because this is a ridiculously quiet January. The biggest move in England that I've seen has been Enzo Lafite to Sunderland, and that's not just me being Sunderland fan hyperbolic. What else has happened? We've seen more manager moves than transfers.
It's this PSR nonsense, man. It really is, and I know, all the clubs voted this in, and you created your own disaster, but how are we at a point where the greatest talking point amongst any club is which homegrown player are you selling so you can make room to bring someone in the summer? It's even, you look at Newcastle, Dubravka's potentially on the move, and everyone's going, oh, that'll give us enough room to get a PSR in. We're going to get absolutely nothing for him. So, it's not going to do anything to us. If anything, it just depletes the squad. For us to be able to make a move, we need to get rid of a Bruno or an Isak or a Gordon, and which is just not going to happen either. It's
you can't afford to lose them, and you can't afford not to
buy anyone. And it's one of those that we are going to have to eventually, if something doesn't change, lose one of them to try give our squad depth, because we've got a handful of very good players, but there's a big crop behind them that aren't. The Miguel Almiron's potentially going to Saudi. That'll get us 10-ish million. He's got a 60 million buyout clause, and we can only get 10. What's that saying?
We are 14 days into the window now. Do we just scrap the January window? Because it's not working anymore. And arguably, has it ever? I think it's produced more duds in transfers than it did successes. it no longer fits the purpose. It's like, as you said, PSR, but like, what's the benefit?
Well, the money now has got out of control, because where it used to be more of a valuable window is you could spend 5 million, 7 million, maybe even go mad and spend 12 and bring in an amazing player. But like when you look at, I don't know, you look back at the likes of, it wasn't too long ago that Virgil van Dijk was bought in January for £75 million. Like, that is criminal. Like, if you're looking for money like that in January, even pre-PSR, that's just not going to happen. Like, the days of the Abramovich type buys are gone. Like Liverpool could not make that deal now. It's I think that's why PSR needs to be restructured. Like, it's almost just turn January into free agency and loans if it's going to be that level of money.
But like, I think a big thing is like, it's usually used for teams that are panicking a bit.
Yeah, or injury ridden. Yeah,
yeah. Like, I don't know if any teams fit the bill this season. Like, there's still like half a window to go. We could see some stuff, but like, I think in terms of like the actual window is like, it's a utility window, isn't it? Like, most clubs are going to do their business when contracts expire in the summer. So like, I do think it serves a purpose. And to be honest, lads, United have always been good in the January transfer window. So
No, you haven't.
we have.
No, you haven't.
We
Alexis Sanchez, Mkhitaryan swap was in the January window.
okay. Bruno Fernandes was signed in January. Nemanja Vidic was signed in January.
You're going into the depths there to
No,
find
but
Vidic.
like, we have a history of signing players in January, like Patrice Evra. The list goes on.
Yeah, but he's like, I've also signed Zaha and Veghorst or Igalo. Like, you aren't covering yourselves in glory there either.
Veghorst was a brilliant signing. Did you see that knee slide against Newcastle? Yeah, you see that?
He was like, I will say,
Poseidon.
he got a lot of shit while he played at United, but like, he was a handy player to have around. He got a couple of goals, like.
Oh, like, I'm not criticizing him. He came in and he did the job that he could have done. But like, when you look at, I think there's just so many dud January moves. Torres to Chelsea, like, big money, big panic. Like, was the league better off for that happening? No.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but Killian, what's your outlook on the January transfer window? Because like, it's not the main transfer window. You know what I mean? Like, it is going to be prone to clubs making panic moves, making moves that probably aren't logical to a certain extent. I think that's the fun in it, is like, see who comes in January and go, like, it's a bit of a roll of the dice type thing.
Well, see, that's the way it used to be. Now it's not, because they're not even spending anymore. So you're not getting like Alfonso Alves going to Middlesbrough for what I think was £10 or £12 million, which is
Something
big money back
there was
then.
low, yeah. Low in today's money, big back then.
But Middlesbrough back then, I think their transfer record was like 8. So like, it was above their record. Like, that was the panic days, and that's when it was fun. Clubs aren't even doing that anymore. They're not even using it. So like, I get it as a kind of, like, most business done now is pre-contracts. Like,
well, that's what I was going to say. It's Bosman rule. That is literally what January is becoming, and even with
loans.
that, yeah.
Like, I love the loan aspect. Is like, it was watching like a loan go from one club to the other and go like, okay, did they make a mistake by loaning them out, or was that a good loan by the club? Like,
I don't know. It's just like, when they're so tightly focusing the money in the league now, and like, there's so many rules around what you can and can't do. Clubs aren't willing to or are unable to spend, so you're not getting the fun elements of them. But like, if and when they do, then they're severely punished, which then ends up ruining them potentially for years to come. So it's now such a lose-lose situation of a window that, would you not rather just have, as we have now, free transfers throughout, maybe make loans throughout, and then your Bosmans from January, and just forget these.
Well, I also think the thing that like that hasn't really been discussed, and maybe it's just because the league don't really want to highlight it, but like, is it down to managers aren't lasting half as long anymore, and clubs don't want to spend twice a year? Like how many times have managers been recycled that they've only got one window in them or max two, and
well,
then they have to rebuild.
It might actually give managers a bit longer of a tenure when they're kind of going, right, we only have the summer, so if we're going with this manager, we
gotta
we have to stick with him for the year.
And I would be in favor of that. Like, I mean, let's be real though, with the amount of money in football right now, that still wouldn't keep a manager in a job. But we're getting to a point now where so many managers are getting, 10 games, 12 games, 15 games and getting the sack. And I'm sure we'll touch on Dyche getting the boot and Moisey coming back in. But I'm just getting fed up with the merry-go-round that is managers in the Premier League. It's there's no building a team anymore. And then you look at even in the people that have built a team, and like bringing it back to Arsenal, like you look at Arteta and yeah, he's really turned them around, but what if they won? Like, so I'm moaning saying managers aren't getting enough time, but I do think he is one of the people that he came in what, 22? Like, I mean, he's had a good stretch of it now. He's had a massive injection of cash, and I'm not saying that he's a bad manager. Like, I mean, they're second in the league, third in the Champions League. You'd absolutely kill to be in that position, but they're stagnating.
Before we move on, lads, best and worst January transfer moves.
I have one that's in the absolute worst, and I think it sums up the January transfer window, and it sums up what used to be Newcastle United. I enter into the chat one Jean Allen Boom song, 8 million 2005. Now, 8 million doesn't sound big now, but like your reaction suggests, that was massive money back then. But what makes this even more of a complete travesty? So this transfer was 2005.
Was he from Juventus?
He prior to where we got him from, I can't remember, but where we got him from was in 2004. He was available on a free transfer. Right. Then he joined Rangers, and then we bought him from Rangers like 4 months later for 8 million quid. So we spent 8 million quid on a bloke who was free 4 months prior. Like, that is what goes back to Nate's point of it's when you're up against the wall. Oh my God, we need a defender. The only thing Boomsong did at Newcastle was get the bench press record, which is still there. But that is the only thing that man added to the club's history.
He can lift the weights, but not the team.
pretty much. Do you guys have anything worse than that?
Worst. Oh, this is difficult. I think Fernando Torres is up there, isn't it?
Is that price tag, do you think? Like, or just all in?
But also expectation, yeah. Obviously Mkhitaryan and Alexis Sanchez definitely up there.
That was just bad for everybody.
Yeah.
See, again, I wonder with transfers like that though. Is that just situational? Of what was going on at the club at that time.
We were buying a world beater that was at Arsenal, and then what we actually got was just
Manchester United
crazy. Like, but did we though? Like, that drop off was arguably one of the biggest of all time. Like,
the Torres one was just sad, if anything.
Torres was never the same after Euros at the World Cup, and like had a not a good start with Liverpool. It was after he cut his hair.
I was about to say, would you say it? It was when he cut those locks, he became shite.
Yeah, and then Liverpool were like, "Hey, we have an asset that we can see on the inside isn't working. Nobody else seems to have figured that out yet. Let's just splat. Like, if they're gonna splash the cash, let's go for it." Like, I've a few bad ones. Kim Kallstrom. Joined Arsenal on a loan.
Swedish. Kim.
Yeah. Was he Leon or?
Yeah.
He joined them with a broken back, and he made like 2 appearances.
Joined with, like, as in they didn't find it in the medical, or they knew?
I think they knew, and I'm kind of like, he'll come too. One of my favorite terrible ones is a player that we've actually spoken about for his terrible time at this team before. Is Benny McCarthy at West Ham? This is when West Ham were just buying all of the strikers.
Well, yeah, I was about to say they bought like 5 strikers that year. Like a goal between them.
Yeah, like they had Frederick Piquion, Benny McCarthy. They had Ilan. They had Guillermo Franco. They still had Vazte in as a youth, I think. It was just they had. I think Mido even came in at one stage there.
I wouldn't be surprised if he was parachuted in an attempt to get goals.
Like, it was just absolutely horrendous. Like, it was just one of them kind of moves, and like they paid money for him. Like, I think they paid 5 or 6 million, but like you paid money. I think potentially the worst one though, again, because it hurt the team he left so badly, and he was so fun at the team that he left.
I think I know where you're going with
and
this.
It was one of them kind of players you're like, class. Just don't move because you're gonna way overperform where you are.
Can I say who I think it is before you say
for it? Yeah.
Dimitri Payet?
No.
Andy Cole?
No. Although Cole could go for it. Wilfred Boney.
Oh, yeah.
25 million. Like, what was the
some goals for Swansea?
For the song alone, he shouldn't have moved. Like, he just...
That was a buyer.
Yeah. But he just never looked to be at the level of City, even when he was at Swansea. And it just killed Swansea's momentum.
Mm.
And then he even went back to Swansea, and it was just not the same. It was just like what's the point?
Is Adebayor a show?
When he went to City?
Yeah, like, I feel like he gradually got worse as he moved.
Well, if him running the entire pitch to knee slide against Arsenal was worth that January transfer.
Yeah, 100%. That knee slide, I think that was kind of the arrival of City. It was kind of like, okay, we can actually do something here. Like, we're splashing the cash and we're gonna have some fun, because I will defend them first few money windows of City, because they were just so random, and they were great. They were proper. Like, who remembers Joe playing with Martin Petrov and Ilano?
I was about to say Ilano. He was unbelievable. Him and Petrov had a thing for a while. They were cooking.
Yeah. But that was under the previous billionaire, the Thai guy who had brought in
the one who was the Elvis impersonator. Yeah.
But like that whole kind of early takeover City and just before was class, because you had like Benjani up front. For a while, I think they spent like 8 or 9 million to get him from Portsmouth.
Redknapp has a cracking story. I implore anyone to look up that story online. Basically,
it's great in Redknapp's voice, so do listen to it. But Connor, what was the gist of it?
Basically, Banjani had no interest in moving, and he was like, went to Redknapp. He was like, Gaffer, I really don't want to go, and Benjani is not worth whatever 8 or 9 million pounds. So Harry was like, no, Benjani, I think you'll have a great time up there. You know, your family will really love it. And he was like, no, Gaffer, I really don't want to go. And he was like, I will drive you there myself. You are going. I am sorry.
He ended up on as a January loan deal for Sunderland a year later. So he did.
I will say, Benjani back in the day, great player.
But again, he at Portsmouth, just that time that Portsmouth team is incredible. Actually, speaking of, Sol Campbell is in an ad for Google
Pixel. It is one of
wild.
I have to say, right, of football, ads with football players are usually not great, and as they go, that one was pretty good.
Yeah, he's just so unlikable though.
For those who haven't seen it, we'll put it up on our socials, and you can let us know what you think. But I personally enjoyed the annoyance of Tottenham Hotspur fans, so that went down well. But okay, enough of the bad. I'm gonna propose one very good one, mainly based off price and longevity. Seamus Coleman, 60 grand, still there.
Take the easy one, Connor. Take the easy.
I'm also
still there. He's now managing them.
Well, yeah. I also I know we touched on it earlier, and you brought it up, but I outside of Coleman, I think, take out the price tag, Coleman might not be on that list, but one person who is absolutely on that list is Nemanja Vidic. That arguably he's in the conversation for Man United's best defender, definitely the hardest one of all time. And I think the impact that he had on that team with his partnership with Rio, it's hard to look past him as he's in the pantheon of best January transfers.
Yeah, like what the impact he gave that team, like from where he came as well, Spartak Moscow, like we didn't know what we were getting, and to find a gem like that was crazy. My two, I'd say, would be first. I'd probably say Luis Suarez from Ajax to Liverpool,
and that fee that was around the 20 odd mil, if I remember. It was somewhere around there, which I mean, absolute steal.
I mean, like they literally got a world class player for 20 million, and they I'll even say I think they got lucky not to win a league with him.
100%.
So like to me that transfer is right up there. And then I've got to back my boy. I think Bruno Fernandes, like a player that we were looking at for a whole year, the impact he had when he came in, like, and still has to this day. I think he's been worth every penny.
I know we've given him shit over the years, but I mean, I would struggle to see what that United team would have looked like the last couple of years without him in it.
I mean, like, he has 250 goals. Like,
it is a lot of money. 47 million quid is a lot of money, but I think he's paid that bank.
Yeah, I just really don't like him. He's such an unlikable
that's the
player.
great thing, Killian, is I love that you don't like him because I love him. You know what I mean? Like, I want my players like that. Yeah, you don't like my player, that's fine. That's how it should be.
One, if we're going on the other side of the money sphere, that definitely now, when I say who this is, legacy wise, it didn't exactly pan out for him, but Coutinho was a January transfer, 8.5 mil.
Yeah, he was at Inter, wasn't he?
Yeah, and he was absolutely prolific.
I think we forget how good he was at Liverpool.
Like the end of his career
the profit alone would have him ranking as one of the best January transfer signings.
Oh, yeah.
What was that? 130 odd he moved for?
In the end, with add-ons and that, but like I even take out his sell on. Like there was a stage there where he was in that kind of like Fab Four that Liverpool had running, and like he was first man on the team sheet. He was terrifying to play against, and he was pulling out some Ronaldinho level skills. Like he was like people. One of those, I hate saying it, but the streets will never forget.
Actually, speaking of that, one that's often forgotten that was a January move, and again was so undervalued in what they paid for him, Mahrez.
Yeah. He was again like 20, 15?
400k.
Stop.
He signed to Leicester from Le Havre for 400k.
All right, are you ready for my last one?
Money alone, just before you hit it, Nate. Money alone, that's like God level. I fully thought he was like 12, 15.
No, he was under half a mil.
Wow.
Ridiculous.
You ready for my one?
What?
Okay. Robert Huth on loan to win the league.
I mean, you're not. I mean, you're not. He is arguably one of the biggest brick shit houses the Premier League has ever seen.
He was unreal that season.
He is a proper slabhead.
Oh, like he is all time slabhead player. Like he hard as nails, good footballer. Like I know we're joking about him, but like at what he did, very good.
May I add, from Stoke City, by the way, to win the Premier League.
Yeah,
like what a crazy upturn there.
He's one of those players though that doesn't fit in today's game, and he had the most specific role imaginable in a team, like a Rory Delap, again, Stoke legend, like a very particular set of skills in the words of Liam Neeson.
But that was one of the things that like the likes of a Clough or anything like that, you'd see a player and you go, I want you to do this one thing
and do it well.
You could be a striker and you play in centre back because you're good at heading. That's all I want you to do. That's all you need to do. And I think that's kind of like an underrated element of football nowadays. I have a couple that I need to mention because they're Sunderland, and it's the only loving that we're going to give them. Carlos Edwards. I think we signed him from Luton, or it was either Luton or Wrexham. I think it was Luton. But he came in the January after Roy Keane arrived, and like he scored crackers. He only scored from 25 yards out.
Was that the year you were bottom of Christmas and went up?
Fourth bottom at Christmas, and we won the league. And he was our right winger for that, and scored banger after banger in like the most crucial games. And he was my favorite player growing up. He's from Trinidad, absolutely class. And I think he's still playing, not professionally, but he's still going around. He's like in his mid-40s.
Carlos, if you're listening, happy to have a chat.
I would fangirl severely. Another one was Stefan Sessegnon. He was a January move, and he's again absolute baller. We got him from PSG, which is wild. Johnny Evans on his loan move to Sunderland from United in the Championship and in the Premier League.
That was back in the days where, although Keano and Fergie'd fallen out, Fergie did Sunderland a lot of solids around that time.
No, he didn't.
He sent a lot of players up that motorway.
We took a lot of players off of United's hands that they were happy to get rid of, and Johnny Evans, we paid more than double his wages. Like
look at the baller, yeah.
It was great. He was perfect value for money, but like we got no favors out of Fergie. Like we took Kieran Richardson off his hands, we took Phil Barnsley off his hands, we took.
He could have blocked that though. He really could have.
Fergie blocking money. Never.
When you name those players again, I love thinking of players like that, like Phil Bardsley, another all-time brick shit house. Kieran Richardson, he really could have.
Against Newcastle was unbelievable. Left-footed over the wall. Oh.
Absolute pinger.
But my favorite January transfer window for Sunderland, sorry, Connor, is, and just to put this in context, now I'm going to really build this up. We had Josie Altidore, the American striker.
Who was good as well.
No, he wasn't.
Yes, he was.
He scored once in 2.5 years.
Not for you, but was a good player.
As a player, yeah. Great for America. Great in America. For us, oh my God. And I so wanted him to do well. Because he was, at one stage, the highest transfer fee out of the MLS when he went from what was then New York Metro Stars before Red Bull came in to Villarreal. So when we got him, I was like, class. Didn't work out for Hull, but it's going to be amazing for us. Literally scored once, and we traded him to Toronto for Jermaine Defoe. It was a swap, 1-to-1 deal.
Defoe was another January transfer as well when he went, I'm going to say West Ham to Spurs.
He was.
Or was it Portsmouth?
No, West Ham Spurs.
First time. Because he went West Ham Spurs, Portsmouth to Spurs to follow Redknapp. Because Crouch did pretty much the same. Yeah,
that era of kind of that Spurs team, that Portsmouth team, that just Harry era.
That Portsmouth team, I could go on forever about, like Laurent, Jaime Hradison, David James in goals, Nico Kranjčar, Kanu.
Like Kanu when he should have been past at Kanu, but was prime.
Unbelievable.
My first
day was there.
My first United game was against that Portsmouth team, and what do you call it? Our goalkeeper got sent off, and one other player got sent off. Who would have been
back then, like Tim Howard or something?
I think it was Tim Howard, and Rio Ferdinand had to go on goal and face a penalty. I think we lost.
I remember this.
I think we lost 3-0. I remember walking in the stadium, just pints flying through the air from both sides, trying to smash each other. Oh, it's mental.
Before we move on, boys, I have one more transfer to add into the mixer.
I have one more as well after.
Okay. It's a very Harry era transfer, but Clint Dempsey, New England Revolution to Fulham, £2 million.
Unbelievable player. So good. Like, so underappreciated. Like, even when he went to Spurs, he was great. Like, he's such a good player. Like, he was part of that Fulham team that got to the Europa League final.
Yep.
Like, plus he was a rapper. Like, at the time, it was just wild.
I think that was pre-social media where he could have been absolutely battered for being a rapper. But
what was his rap name? Fun fact.
Oh God, it's going to be something incredibly American.
Clinto or something.
No. It was his shirt number, Deuce.
Oh Jesus!
Interesting.
Means something else.
My final one is, and shock and horror to United one. Patrice Evra from Monaco to United for 5 million.
For that jacket he wore on the signing day alone, I veto that.
No, I think like what we got out of him as a left back for that price was unmatched. I think. So yeah,
that defense you guys had around that time was just unbelievable.
I think the funniest thing is like Gary Neville was probably the weakest link of them all, and he was still such a player.
And Gary Neville's arguably, I mean, actually, it's a nice segue into it. But like, best right back of all time, is it Gary Neville or is it Kyle Walker? Because Kyle Walker's obviously like asked to leave City now, and it's looking like he's moving to get away from the media because of personal reasons that we won't go into. But do you think Walker or do you think Neville? I think Neville based on longevity.
I think Neville as well.
Oh, I don't know. Like,
they're very different players in very different eras in very different systems. So like they are, it is a bit apples and oranges.
I think you can like the only way for like the sort of can compare it is like longevity currently, and I think the impact that they've had on their side. Like I think we've seen over the years with City is like if you take one out, like what's like is there a huge drop off? You know what I mean? Where I feel like for Gary Neville to hold that right back slot down for as long as he did showed how vital he was.
And that was in an era where Man United would buy whoever they want.
But they also didn't necessarily spend. They weren't always spending to replace people, if you know what I mean. They were always like going for a little bit more calculated. If they didn't need to spend it, they weren't going to spend it. Like when you consider the number of like team of the years and everything and the titles and all that, you have to kind of give it to Neville. But like
also from a leadership perspective,
better players.
But this is the funny thing. Like as in, if we're saying Gary Neville's possibly the greatest right back of all time, and there is better right backs.
It's just in the Premier League.
Premier League. If we're saying like, I'd put him up. Maybe not the best right back of all time, all leagues, but he's definitely top
I think he's
3.
Close. Like, I think the big thing is like in that United team, as you said, how good that defense was. He was like the only player that wasn't bought. You know what I mean? So like, if they wanted to, like, they could have gone and bought a different right back, but he was clearly very, very useful.
Like, I think like there's other players that don't get the kind of love that they should. Seamus Coleman should be in that conversation because again, he was been so good and so consistent in a team that has, for the majority of his career, been mediocre. And he's always performed better than the team.
But I think you raise a good point in terms of, I suppose it's hard to define best right back. Like, are we going off what attribute are we saying here? Because the thing that I would say that Coleman's better than Neville in is Coleman is the ideal soldier. You point him in the direction, tell him where to go, and he'll do what you need him to do. And like, but I do think then again, from a impact and again leadership and standards, and I'm not like Jesus, I'd have Seamus Coleman on my team any day of the week, but I think Neville still edges it for me.
Like Lee Dixon deserves a mention.
Yeah, he does.
Similar reasons. Yeah. But another player I just can't not have mentioned is Steve Finnan.
Yeah,
even by Liverpool fans, he is so underappreciated.
Well, like, I mean, you see any of the interviews from that era of the Istanbul team, and he was that team. He was the glue guy. He was just at that point he was definitely top 3, but no one would have ever said it.
Well, it's like Gary Neville now. Like if Steve Finnan was doing the same amount of media that Gary Neville is now, there'd be a lot more similar conversations about Steve Finnan as there is Gary Neville, where like people are starting to
recency bias of seeing him on telly. Yeah,
no, but not even that. It's like when you have the professionals around saying, "No, Gary, you were actually great," and Gary being like, "Oh no, I was fine. I did my job." He goes, "No, you were very, very good in a very, very good team." Steve Finnan, the man has been on a missing persons list for over a decade now, and if he was in Gary Neville's position, you would have his teammates going, "Hey, wait a minute," and that would make people kind of go, "Actually, do you know what? Yeah, he was bloody damn good."
I mean, I think it's one of those where because he just faded into the abyss, you've kind of forgotten what he did as a player. You know, well, like
he's one of the only players to have scored in, I think, the top 5 divisions in England.
You love to see stats like that. Like
it was something like that, or he was the first one. Because what it was he's the first player to play in the conference, up the leagues, the Champions League, and a World Cup or something like that.
Jesus Christ!
And like he like you forget how long of a career he had. Like he even played out in Espanyol for like 4 years as well.
When you look at players like him, it just reminds me of that 2002 Ireland team. It's like, how the hell did we have that level of talent in this country, and then the drop off is worse than the Torres drop off? You know?
Yeah, like it's Ireland is very much kind of like England in that sense, where it's that kind of like, what if, what could have been. Now, at least we kind of have a figurehead to blame, whereas they just had gross incompetence and egos.
Before we move off the transfers, boys, I know it seems like AC Milan is the only interested party in Walker at this point, and a certain Marcus Rashford is also on I suppose a short list that AC Milan are looking at. Nate, is there any truth in that Rashford conversation, or is it just pure agent speak? Because the thing that I'm querying is they, since Brexit, UK players count as non-EU players, so pretty much AC Milan can only buy one of Rashford or Walker unless they want to give away a non-EU spot. So is the conversation even real? And then I'll throw it to both of you. If it is real, which one would you take?
Yeah, like there's definitely conversations going on. I'm not sure how like advanced they are. Yeah, like I think AC Milan have shown over the last little while that they're looking to go after some English players. Like, Tammy Abraham's there, Tomori,
Loftus Cheek.
Loftus Cheek. They're looking for a Rashford or Walker. Do I think it's a good move for Rashford? I'm not too sure. I think he'd have his expectations probably a bit higher. Is there room for him in that squad? I don't know.
His expectations would be higher, you think?
Yeah, like see, that's the thing, is like his expectations versus reality are going to be two very different things for him.
Well, is there anyone else circling around him? Because I haven't heard much talk about him.
There's been like Dortmund looking and stuff like that. Rumors about Arsenal, don't know how true that is. Yeah, like I think it's all just really messy with Rashford right now.
So if you're AC Milan, both of them are available to you. Who are you picking, Walker or Rashford? I suppose age plays into this, with Walker being 33.
Rashford 100%. Like I think Walker's drop off in the next year or two is gonna be frightening. You come back and clip this if you want. Like I think the type of player he is, he relies a lot on pace. I think we're gonna see a sharp decline.
And I also think there will be studies done on the level of drop off of some Manchester City players. Like shout out Kevin De Bruyne from last week's pod. Walker. We've got plenty others we can name. But Killian, what are you saying? You're AC Milan's director of football. You got Rashford. You got Walker. Who are you saying? You got to pick one, because I know you're probably going to say pick. I'm not picking one.
I wouldn't choose either of them. The smarter money is Rashford. Age alone. They're both going to have astronomical wages. I think Rashford as well he has the ability to have a bit of a sell on, and I don't mean that just because of age, but like it's a whole lot easier if he has one good season out in Italy, or even a season and a half or 2 seasons. You could get a reasonable fee in a couple of years' time, probably from the likes of a West Ham or somebody random like that.
Well, what do we think United want for Rashford? Have they even said?
I think they just have to go for like a 30-odd million. Like, what can you ask for?
Will they get 30 million though?
If they did, I don't think it'd be a bad deal. What would you accept?
Do you think? Yeah, do you think they can get 30 mil?
Yeah, like I think a lot of like I do think he retains value quite well. Like I think name alone, what he's shown in the past, albeit how inconsistent that's been. I think he's very much a player that's looked at as if like if we can get him going, we get him going type thing. You know what I mean? Like 30 to 40 million for Rashford seems like a steal to me.
I don't know. Like maybe I'm just biased from British media and reading all of that, but he wouldn't be. I think he could spend 40 million better.
Oh, you absolutely could. But are they not looking to get him on loan? And at least initially.
I'd say United. I don't know, Nate, you might know more on this, but I'd say they just want rid of him because if they have him on a loan, he goes. Or sorry, if they put him out on loan and he plays a wonder season, are they screwed then? Going, we have to put him back in the team, even though Amarim may not want to put him back in the team.
No, like I think the option to sell him's still there, like because
could be a little bit of an obligation.
But also, if he goes and has a class season, there's also a higher chance to sell him on for more. So, like, to be honest, I think if he does go out on loan, that's the end of Rashford at United. It's like full stop. I think it'll be like a Sancho situation. But yeah, like I think if he goes and does well on loan, that's better for us.
Speaking of going, we had the sad news recently that none other than I'd love to say friend of the pod. He is in my head. Sean Dyche was relieved of his duties. We don't exactly know what happened, I suppose. Depending on what article you read, he decided to leave, and in others, he was forced out the gap. But Killian, what's your take on it? Obviously, David Moyes coming in, great to see him back at the club. But what's your take on Dyche getting pushed out?
On Dyche going, it's for what I think is most realistic was one of the ones I think is probably most commonly been reported is that he basically told the new ownership that he can't take the team on any further. Now I would imagine that would be with the caveat of kind of going without major backing or without a big overhaul, I can't take the team further. And I think the ownership kind of just not really forced into making a decision, but like if they want to be selling out the stadium before it's knocked down forever and they move to the new one and get a feel good factor, they kind of need to finish the season strong.
The timing was really strange, though. Like that's on the day of the game, he's relieved of his duties. Like,
yeah, that's why I kind of think that they would feel that they were kind of forced into it, kind of going, well, if you don't think you can do the job, well, then why would you keep you in it?
See, I don't know I don't know about you, Nate, but that doesn't sound like Sean Dyche to me. I don't think like he's humble enough to admit that he may not be able to bring him to the next level, but I don't think he would. The way the media are portraying it, it sounds like he just said, "Oh, I'm done with this lot. I can't bring this lot any further." And I think you're right, Killian. It was probably caveated without investment, without backing, without support. What about you, Nate?
Like the thing with it happening on match day, I think that's more of a PR thing. I think we all know when managers leave or sacked, an NDA gets signed and you can't say anything. So I think it becomes very good for the club if they sack him on match day and go boo hoo, look at us if we lose tonight. You know what I mean?
I just wonder how soon the previous. There's no way he said on match day I can't bring them.
No, that's what I'm saying. Is like I think it was done with the view of a PR move that if Peterborough came to Goodison and packed us in and be like, yeah, well, we only had 2 interims on 4-hour notice.
Like I do think there's another thing that can't be understood as well is the new owners are American, and they're also the owners of Roma, who are on their 4th coach this year.
Well, I was about to say they've had a tumultuous time with managers.
Like any indication of weakness, I think they just hop on it.
Everton are just a funny club at this stage, aren't they? Like who knows what they are currently? Like, what we're approaching like a third relegation battle in like 4 years, is it? Like, come on, lads! Like,
they really remind me of that West Ham team before Big Sam went in. Just kind of teetering on the edge of relegation, spending stupid money and not getting any results for it, and kind of just going through a good few managers. Like,
and may I add, their team is shite.
Like, tell us how you feel, Nate.
Yeah,
no, like let's just put it on the table, lads. Like, they can't get a manager appointment right. You know, they can't sign players with a bit of something about them. God bless Jake O'Brien on the bench there. You know,
oh, I'd say his
head's on Mars.
He did very well in the first game under the guys.
He did, yeah, and I hope I would like to think under the likes of David Moyes he'll get a chance, and like I am glad to see David Moyes back in the club. I think it is a good appointment. I'll be interested what you guys think, but I think it's a good appointment, not even just from a PR perspective, but I always got the vibe from him when he left. He only left. I don't even think it was the money of Man United, and I don't think even he thought he was the guy for Man United. I think he just thought he owed it to Sir Alex when Sir Alex said, "I picked you," and he didn't really have a choice. And I think he kind of always had a bit of unfinished business at Everton. And look, he's a fantastic manager, an old school manager that's able to adopt somewhat of the new school, and he's good at playing youth. So I think it's only good things for Everton.
I disagree personally. Yeah, I think it's a backwards move.
Is that off the hatred from the United days or genuinely?
No, I no feeling towards David Moyes. Trust me. I think it's a backwards move. I think, you know, Everton are a club they need to get with the times. You know, I think we've seen with their last 3 or 4 appointments that, you know, I think they're sort of stuck in their ways from the last 10 odd years. I think they need a bit more of a forward thinking manager. Because, like, let's be real, they've got the money to go out there and buy good players. Like, in terms of like what they've spent on that current squad, is if they were a bit more smarter with it and a bit more up to date with what coaching is now, I think the club would be in a well better position.
Killian, what are you saying?
I think it's a solid appointment. I think it's a sideways appointment from Dyche. The new manager bounce should give them the just enough to kind of have a credible finish. I'm really interested to see who's going to be their big fucker. Moyes always has a big fucker. He had Fellaini and then he had Souček. And he had the Yak. He loves a big fucker, and I'm mad to see who's going to be the next big fucker.
If shout out Yak, if he was a January transfer, he wins. I loved that man.
He was so consistently good. Middlesbrough, Portsmouth, Everton. Oh,
man doesn't lose.
Feed the Yak, and he will
score. Yeah.
Just a quick question: do you think Everton are like in need of a relegation?
Yeah.
I don't.
Because I do.
I agree with you. My fear would be if they went down, they wouldn't come back, and it could be a lead situation where they'd flounder for a few years.
I think they come back because the parachute payments are very generous. The only issue is they can't get relegated this season or next year because they can't afford it with the stadium.
Oh, and then they'd be in real trouble. Jesus, yeah. Then it would be Leeds.
Yeah, and I think that's the bigger concern. If they got relegated last year, it would have been fine.
Like I cards on the table, boys. You know, obviously, everyone knows I'm a Newcastle fan, but I have very much a soft spot for Everton. I as Moisey call them, they are the people's club. I think there's another world in which I could have been wearing blue, so I'm a bit biased on this one.
Yeah, I apologise to our Everton listeners because this is coming from a United fan. Like, you know where we are, but like, lads, these are fucked. Like, I don't know what's going on there. Like.
Yeah, it's they're in a really, really difficult kind of situation. But I think Moyes will be fine. I think it'll be fine. Do you think this sacking is ruined Dyche in the Premier League's eyes?
I don't. I think it's ruined the caliber of club he can go to. I don't want to kind of speak ill of teams like Southampton because great history, great club. I think that's the kind of team that he'd be able to go to. It'd be an insane move to do.
But he can't even go there because the reason they hired Russell Martin in the first place was because his style of play. They want they don't necessarily care about having on-field success if it's being played the right way.
Yeah,
Like,
but I think, like whether it's available or not, I think that's kind of, if he's going to be a Premier League manager, that is the level he can be at. I one thing I should say, and or not even should say, what I like to see was Moisey called Dyche and was like, you know, I no ill will here. Like, they're good pals. He was like, I wasn't waiting in the wings, and you know, it just happened. And apparently Dyche was like, look, it seemed like the right time for me to go, and he had a feeling they were sniffing around.
Nate, do you think we'll see Dyche back in a Premier League job? I think we'll see him back in the Premier League, probably through a promotion, but do you think he'll go straight back into a Premier League job?
Yeah, but I just think he's like a utility tool now, like, and I mean that in the nicest way possible.
Where do we think, though?
Like, he's done it to himself, I think. Like, I don't feel bad for the guy, but I think he's done what he's done. Like, you know, there's definitely more to Sean Dyche's football than I think we've seen. I'll say that.
Yeah.
I think he's tried to play it too safe at Everton. I would have liked to see more expansive football. Like, come on, Dyche, mate, you're a football coach. You know, we can try and score goals. You know what I mean?
Well, let's not forget Sean Dyche is that old school type of manager where one day a week he has what he calls Dyche Day, and he does not allow any of the sports scientists on the training facility, and he just runs them dead.
Actually, you know, like, the more I think of it, like, that open place that could be the nail in his coffin. It is like it's the main objective of football is to score a goal, and if you can't do it in that period of time, I don't think you'd be looked at too fondly for that.
Do you think if he goes into another kind of smaller club or firefighting job that he is in danger of becoming the new Sam Allardyce?
Are we talking if he goes Prem?
Yeah, so like say if he went into a Southampton style situation.
Yeah, I think he makes himself he pigeonholes himself as a Big Sam, kind of parachute him into safe from relegation.
Well, let me ask you this: do you think Sean Dyche can do anything other than firefight?
Yeah,
I think he can. Yeah, I just don't know. Now this makes it sound terrible. I'm not saying he can't hack it in the Premier League, but I think he is a manager that would be unbelievable in the Championship. I think it just suits him better. That kind of less Charlie football, if you know what I mean. More kind of real football.
I think the kind of clubs that suit him are perennial underdogs. Like, I think he does better with less because it becomes a lot more about what can I get out of these guys, and I think he's an amazing motivator. Like we saw in previous lives together. Keith Tracy talking about his man management at Burnley and the fact that he just took him under his wing and was like, I don't care about if you ever play football again. I'm trying to fix you as a guy. I'm trying to help you as a man. I think that kind of a situation. So like if he went into a small club and got them promoted, I think he would have a very, very solid 5 years in the
Sean Dyche is the definition of siege mentality. Like if he gets it, like if he got a club like a Luton, like I know he's not going to get that role, but I'm just
that kind of a style where like the community and the players and everybody rows in the one direction. I think that is his wheelhouse and his speciality, and I think when there's more media expectations that are like like Everton is a job where you have to be media savvy.
Yeah,
they're one of the only clubs never to get relegated from the Premier League. Like there's
also Liverpool is a massive market, you know.
Yeah, whereas when you can get to know your journalists and stuff, I think that's where he thrives. Like we saw it over COVID, he was great crack.
Yeah,
because he knew these guys, and you can have that little bit more of a 1-to-1, and I think that helps him, and him being happy helps the players.
Remind me, his exit at Burnley. What happened there? Was it sour on his way out? Because I'm just trying to like think of his last couple of jobs and the
if I can remember correctly, it was sort of sour, but it also kind of wasn't. It was kind of like, okay, you've done a decade, and we're on the verge of getting relegated. But I think we at the time were even kind of going, ooh, did they jump the ship too early?
Yeah.
I'll just say it, lads. I think if the Bundesliga watches football, I think they'd have a heart attack. Like, them lads defend with two people. Like, I think genuinely they'd be flipping if they watched this football.
I would love him to go into like a Schalke or an Eintracht Frankfurt or one of these kind of relatively small towns, big teams, and just go into the Bundesliga and just shock them all. Just kind of go, yeah, you may have invented the Blitzkrieg, but here's the Dyche-Krieg. Just hammer them down.
Honestly, I think he'd start riots over there.
Could you imagine him speaking German?
Some would say it would
yeah.
I think he would be absolutely class.
Maybe international football for him.
I don't know. I don't think actually. He could do it. He could do it well. I don't want to see him in international, not yet.
But where's available?
Well, he can't go anywhere sunny. That man be sunburnt to fuck.
I take him at Ireland.
But he's not going to get the job there. Steve Clark is solid up in Scotland.
Bellamy's in Wales. He's doing all right.
Yeah, Michael O'Neill is solid in Northern Ireland. Unless he follows like my Football Manager career and goes out to like Slovenia for a decade, I don't think he's gonna.
Do you think he'd do MLS?
I don't know. MLS have been hiring a lot of European managers.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
This year, like Olaf Mellberg is out there now. Somebody's after hiring another Swede, Pell Anderson, today. There's been a lot of moves. I don't know if he would, because it's such a different way of life as well. And I think I think he's a bloke and he likes English culture and. Like not to be cliche, but I think he is a bit Brexity. Not as a man, but just I think he likes the English way of life. Whereas, like if you go out there and took over San Diego, well, then you're the only soccer team there, and you're gonna be like expected to be like an NFL coach, and there'll be a lot more of that kind of media thing.
General manager type of gig.
And I don't know if that would kind of be his gig. Plus, I don't know if they even know he exists.
I mean, his CV would get him a job there if he wanted it. But I do think
a former Burnley manager was out there a number of years ago. Owen Coyle, if we can all remember him.
Owen Coyle was in the MLS.
I think he was at Houston Dynamo for a year or two before he went to India.
Way.
Yeah.
He's another blast from the past. He's a real like Premier League years on Sky Sports kind of managing.
That Burnley team again was class. Graham Alexander.
Oh my god.
Who was the?
I've got like 7 faces in my head right now that I can't picture or put the names on.
George Boyd.
Yeah.
Chris Eagles.
Oh, I never liked him. He was a rodent of a player.
Yeah, but like having Brian Jensen, the 40-year-old Denmark in goals, class. And then they had Danny Ings come through there at that time as well. And they had years ago Akinbaye. He went through there on their rise up from League One. Actually, just because we can. Do you remember that Hull City team that Phil Brown brought up?
Dean Windass and that
Ian Ashby.
Yeah.
They had Giovanni there for a while.
Yeah, they did.
Who was at Man City. Who they had Michael Dawson, who ended up going to Sunderland, but he was a class youngster.
That was a straight up like Vibes FC team.
No, Dawson was your man from Spurs, and had Michael Turner, who was a slab head that went to Sunderland. Bose Myhill was their goalkeeper.
No recall. Like I remember all these players, but like I wouldn't be the first to remember them.
That was my year. I loved them once, and the same like Wigan, proper Barclays team.
Paul Jules' finest, like.
Oh, even after that, like early Roberto Martinez years was great as well. When I think they had Tunchai Sanley, who was at Middlesbrough most famously. I think he went through.
I think you're right. There's definitely a podcast in this, boys. Like those kind of teams, like the Boltons, with JJ Okocha and
that was all my year as well.
And Nelka was at Bolton, and then he went to Chelsea and was amazing both times.
And then went to 72 other teams.
Yeah, and let us not forget one of them was West Brom, where he got banned for his Quinzel celebration. Yeah, absolutely unbelievable. And he went to Juve as well around that same time. Class. And what's class is we'll be back next week, because that's the end of this podcast. Nearly exactly on the hour. Gentlemen, thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
It's been a pleasure.
Messi.